How's it going, everybody? So in today's video, we're going to be talking about what extra things you can do to improve your jiu-jitsu training outside of training jiu-jitsu. These are things that I've done myself. These are things I've coached my students to be able to do. So with that, we're going to get this video started right now. What's up, everybody? My name is Chasen. I'm a jiu-jitsu black belt. I've been training for over 12 years now. I'm a full-time instructor. I help teach on a daily basis. I help run an academy. So if you like a lot of jiu-jitsu things, this is a great channel for you guys. I do narrative sparring breakdowns of myself training with my students. I do technique breakdowns and jiu-jitsu talks like this. So make sure you give this video a like and subscribe down below so that way you never miss the latest video. So in today's video, we're really going to discuss what extra things we can do to improve our jiu-jitsu outside of actually training jiu-jitsu. This is an extremely common question that I get asked by a lot of students and things I had to experience myself. I think we get so fascinated with jiu-jitsu that we want to do everything we can to better it as fast as we can. And realistically, jiu-jitsu is you have to have a partner to be able to train with. You can't just grab somebody out on the street and go do jiu-jitsu. So you're restricted on certain times when class is offered, when the academy or your gym is open. So there's people feel like, man, I know I could be doing something else when I have some free time. So what can I do? So let's start with the very first one. And that's, of course, extra physical activity. That can mean weightlifting. That can mean running. That can mean extra solo drilling on your own. Those are all things that you can do outside of training jiu-jitsu. Lifting weights. Obviously, lifting weights is going to have some benefit because you're going to be able to put on some strength. Your tendons and ligaments and muscles and tissues will all be stronger. So that way, whenever you're sparring and you're rolling and you're training really hard, you're not getting as fatigued. Your muscles recover faster because it's been scientifically proven that if we participate in weightlifting exercises, that our muscles get more efficient at recovering. So things of that nature, those things will definitely help. I think there are different ways that maybe you can approach weightlifting, and that would probably be a whole separate video that I can do. Weightlifting specifically for jiu-jitsu. There is definitely different styles of weightlifting. There's your traditional, bodybuilding. There's like CrossFit style of weightlifting. There's mild circuit training. You kind of have all your different ways of training, and I definitely think there are mindsets and focuses you can do while weightlifting that maybe affect your jiu-jitsu in a better way. So that's a video for, like I said, a whole another topic. So if you guys are interested in that, make sure you comment down below. Obviously, doing cardiovascular training, such as running, swimming, biking, things of that nature, those will definitely help. Even though jiu-jitsu is not necessarily a straight, what's called aerobic activity, where we're getting into a steady state of oxygen consumption. We're doing more anaerobic activities, high and low with jiu-jitsu. So, but it still helps. Definitely running and building up endurance on the muscles is not going to hurt you. But it is important that if you do some physical activity, you want to maybe throw in some sprinting activities, some cycling, sprint cycles, kind of get that heart rate up and down and kind of training that aspect versus just a straight 10-mile run. But that's not going to hurt at all. So those are definitely some things that you can do with extra physical activity outside of jiu-jitsu. Then, of course, I mentioned any kind of solo drilling. That was really popular. Right now when the pandemic happened, people were doing a lot of solo drilling. They were figuring out things you can do on your own. That's a whole separate video I can do as well too. There's a bunch of solo drills, anything from like shrimps, bridge and rolls, sit-out drills. There's a bunch of things that you can do. And you can even kind of create your own. You can create your own flow. It's very similar to like yoga. Yoga has its poses that strategically you master the pose, and then there are ways that you can flow each pose together. So a flow training or a solo drill training can be done very similarly as well too. Another thing you can do outside of your training is it's more about your mind after that. You can definitely think about getting some instructionals or learning online. those will help, but I will say, be careful. I give a warning when we talk about this, even to my students, that instructionals can benefit people greatly, but they can also set you back greatly depending on who you are and where you're at your stage of training. When you're newer to Jiu-Jitsu, I really recommend people stay away from instructionals because I think a lot of times when you go to a school nowadays, the instructor, if there's a basics class or a program and they have a curriculum they're wanting to teach, they really want their students to focus on that. And ultimately, unless you're going to be training at a bunch of different schools, I really advise you to adhere to what your instructor or where your gym is suggesting you focus on that curriculum. And so sometimes if you start looking at instructionals too early, they will show techniques taught differently, which, techniques, they can be done thousands of different ways. The same technique can be done a bunch of different ways. So you may see an instructional and they may show it different than how your instructor shows it. And definitely the one in the instructional may be more effective in the sense of an overall context of jiu-jitsu. But if you're a newer person, the instructor probably has a grand plan of why they want you to learn this technique first like this. And that's sometimes hard for people to wrap their brain around. I think we want to look at instructionals as cheat codes or hacks. And so if I just buy more instructionals and I ingest more information, I'm just going to hack the system. And that's not necessarily true. There's a thing called analysis by paralysis. That basically means if you have too many options, you're going to freeze, you're going to start confusing, you're not going to make a decision, you're going to take too long. And that definitely happens with new students. That's why a lot of times if you're a white belt and you're going to a school, there's a hard and fast curriculum and they want you to only learn it one way right now. Because they just want you to say, hey, if you're in a moment and you need to use a side control escape, I want you to have 2 or 3 that you're really good at and you just go to them right away. You don't have to think about it. Now, when you get a little bit more advanced, maybe blue belt, purple belt, a little higher, the game starts to slow down, that analysis by paralysis starts to fade away, and you can think of techniques a lot simpler and you can start to add to them and add different variations and start to veer from how you first learned it. That's totally okay. If your school has an online curriculum, which it seems like it's moving toward now, a lot of schools now are filming, if you're a basic student or even an advanced student, they're filming their exact curriculum that they want you to know. So make sure you take time and invest in that. That instructor invested a lot of time shooting those videos. Trust me, I shoot videos all the time. I know how much work goes into them. So, make them feel good. Watch their video so that way it actually speeds up your training. If your school has a curriculum and then there's video references, that actually, I would say, double your training because you're getting it taught on video the exact way you're seeing it in class. So it's just a double reassurance that what you're learning is sticking in your brain. So if your school is set up like that, like I know, for example, the Gracie Academy has a great system. What they teach online is exactly what they teach in class. I know Marcelo Garcia has a great one. John Danaher, of course, with all of his instructionals, he's openly said that the way he's showing you in his instructionals is the way that if you go to his class, he's teaching his techniques. So if you're a Danaher student, probably buying his instructionals and viewing them and then going to the class is probably going to benefit you greatly. Another thing you can do with the mental is because of the access of YouTube now and all kinds of videos with like flow grappling, you can definitely watch jiu-jitsu matches. And those will help to an extent. I would say this needs to be a little bit later in your career, but you don't really get any harm out of watching matches when you're younger in your journey, I think. I think as you just get a little bit more seasoned and you start to appreciate jiu-jitsu a little bit more, you get exposed to more techniques, you can see the little tiny things that are happening in matches in real life. And as opposed to if you're a brand new student, you may not understand everything that's going on, but definitely studying matches on your own, with YouTube and things like that, flow grappling, those are a great resource. So those are 2 really good things you can do on your own that really train your mental capability, right? You can view instructionals or techniques if you're at that certain point and if you don't feel like it's going to throw you off, or you can start to study matches and start to watch. And the last thing that can really suggest you doing is just be thinking about jiu-jitsu and just think about how the techniques you're learning, thinking about how it works, trying to build jiu-jitsu into your life. Try to think about being more efficient in your life. Cool thing that jiu-jitsu does is it really embodies people to change their whole life. They will become more efficient in the things that they do in life. Whenever they're taking out the trash or watering the yard or mowing, you start to find little things that you're like, man, in jiu-jitsu, okay, I choose this grip for this reason because it's more effective than this grip, and you start to do that with other things. So the more you can think about jiu-jitsu in your daily brain and add more daily routine things in, even as a simple thing of like getting up and basing every time you get up and off the ground, just always having jiu-jitsu on the brain will definitely help you. But those are some immediate impact things that you can do to definitely keep your jiu-jitsu sharp and train on your own. Obviously, the first two things that we talked about, just as a quick recap here, were the physical aspects. That could be weightlifting, exercising, participating in other activities, yoga, things like that, maybe long distance running, biking, cardiovascular, any kind of physical activity. Also doing solo drills on your own will definitely help. That's kind of a workout and a movement. And then the second thing that we talked about was about our mental state, watching instructionals, especially if your school has a curriculum, really diagnosing that curriculum and diving deep into it and understanding it. And then we also talked about maybe watching a few jiu-jitsu matches, kind of indulging in them, taking notes, maybe sit down with your instructor, ask your instructor if you've seen that match and what does he see out of it, and here's the things you picked up on, and bounce the ideas off of them. And the last thing is always be thinking about jiu-jitsu, have it on your brain, think about how you can be more efficient, think about the techniques or the curriculum that you're studying in class right now, and really try to write it down, make sure it's sticking in your brain. So all those are great things you can do supplementary outside of actually being at the academy. They're very simple things, but they're things that can help and really take your game to the next level. So I hope you guys like this video. Make sure you hit the like and subscribe button down below if you guys enjoyed it. As a quick plug, I have started a podcast called the Chasen Live Podcast. So if you guys like those, make sure you check it out. You can find it where all podcasts are found. It's heavily a jiu-jitsu podcast. So I interview a guest and we have some cool conversations. So I greatly appreciate if you guys check that out. And with that, I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy.